Danny's cancelled, guys. Lifting Vegan Logic's cancelled. Now, let's just set the tone here. So I haven't seen the video in question. Danny posted a video, Lifting Vegan Logic, says 5 things vegans need to stop doing. And I just read through the comments of that video, and I see that there's a lot of support, which is great, but I also saw there was a bit of drama. Like, some people were not pleased with what he was saying. And I got a bit of a gist for it. And I thought, I'm going to watch it. Then I thought, I'm not going to watch it yet. Then I thought, why don't I just watch it and respond and react to it with you guys? So that's what kind of led me to this point right now. So yeah, cancelled. Maybe he'll be cancelled by the end of this video. Maybe I'm coming on here to cancel Danny. We'll just have to see what happens in the video, won't we? Now, before we get into this, I guess I have to say that you guys should already know this. I'm friends with Danny. There's no drama here at all. This is the cancelled thing is a joke, or as a joke. But I am genuinely curious on what this video says. Like, I've not discussed this with him. Full transparency, I don't know what's in this video. Danny and I have not talked about this video. We've not talked about the criticisms he's had. We've genuinely, the only things that we've been talking about have been our collaboration video coming up, which you guys are going to absolutely love, by the way. Super excited to reveal that. It's our Types of Meat Eaters video. Very, very excited to show you what's been going on there. But today, yeah, we're going to take a look at his video. And also, guys, after we've watched this together, if you have other suggestions that you want, videos of things you want me to respond to, then send them over, and we'll see how much time we've got, and we'll get through to some of those as well. And we'll have a little react together. There is at least one that I want to react to from a non-vegan, and if you've got more things you want me to have a look at, you gotta send it over, and yeah, we'll get to it. All right, we'll get to it. So let's take a look at Danny's new video, shall we? Let's see what's going on here. All right, so it's titled 5 Things Vegans Need to Stop Doing. Now, if you look at the likes to dislike ratio, it doesn't seem like there's really much drama at all. Actually, it looks like it's going to be a pretty good video. But as you dive into the comments, there is some controversy and some drama, and some people are quite upset. There's 420 comments, and yeah, it seems that there's a mix. There's a lot of support. Danny's had to come on and clarify some stuff. So I really don't know what to expect here. I'll be honest with you. I really don't know what I'm getting myself in for here. I don't know what I'm going to have to give some opinions on. I really don't know what's coming. So Danny, thanks for this, mate. Let's take a look at what he said and what's got some people riled up, and what 5 things do the vegans need to stop doing? What 5 things do I need to stop doing, Danny? Let's have a look.
Hey, what is up, guys? Today's going to be a relatively controversial video in which we talk about some of the things that I think vegans do or say in the form of argumentation or just claims made that I believe are either unreasonable or just cringe and make us look a little bit insane. This is
okay. It's pretty spicy to kick off, isn't it? Looking at things that make us look cringe or insane. I mean, I've covered that as well, to be fair. Like, whenever you touch on a topic like this, it's always going to come with some potential of really upsetting people. I guess it depends on what you're actually going to say. Like, I don't know, if you say something that's really, really subjective and you know, just based on your own experience and try to make it out like it's something everyone should do, then obviously you're going to fall into a trap there. But what I've commented on is stuff like this famous vegan who started drinking his own cum. Like, that was obviously we all agree that's fucked up. I also commented on vegans who were trying to say that calling trees lumber is speciesist. I said that was insane. And I think you all agree on that one. I think these, I mean, they are subjective, but I mean, they're pretty obvious things that most people are going to be like, what the fuck? So it depends on what you're getting into. But let's see what he's going to get into then. Let's see what's going to be like cringe and what we should stop doing.
This is not meant to be a video which initiates a form of vegan infighting or something like that. This video is meant to be a means by which we can generate discussion and dialogue and internal critiques of our movement in an effort to make our movement as refined and robust as possible in defending ethical veganism and also just the health claims that will come with the advocacy of a plant-based diet.
You know, the problem with when I'm watching this, because I've been editing mine and Danny's video now for so long, and it's just pure sarcasm, as most of his videos are pure sarcasm. I'm finding it difficult to listen to him here and take him completely seriously because of how much. I'm like wondering if he's being sarcastic or not. I'm like, is this sarcasm right now? But it's not. It's being serious. So to be clear, I'm like 75% sure this is like a serious video. Well, we'll see. It's beyond.
So let's start with some arguments or claims that vegans will make that I just don't find too reasonable, and occasionally I will be providing some alternatives that you can use.
It's very serious even. All right, let's go.
So let's start with this whole humans are herbivores claim that I've seen many vegans use, including ethical vegans, when trying to either defend ethical veganism or try to convince people to consume more plants or eat a plant-based diet to be healthy. Yep. So if you're a vegan who opposes the use of the appeal to nature fallacy in the context of a meat eater using it to justify them not being a vegan, you know, when they say eating meat is natural, therefore it is ethical, or therefore it is healthy, then it doesn't make much sense for you, a vegan, to also appeal to nature in trying to defend ethical veganism.
Makes sense, yeah. Makes sense. It's like it can't be one rule for them and another rule for us, one rule for us, one for them. Like if appealing to what our natural diet is irrational. So if someone's like, yeah, but our natural diet is meat, to then say, well, it doesn't really matter what our natural diet is, does it? And then to say, but our natural diet is actually to be herbivores, our natural diet is plant-based diet, and that's why you should be vegan. I mean, yeah, I mean, you can use it to kind of as an additional thing, I'd say. Like if you actually believe that, you know, I don't know if Danny's going to get into the science behind this or not, but yeah, if you actually believe that humans are fully 100% that is the diet we should be eating biologically or whatever, I suppose it's I don't know, you could mention it, but I wouldn't use it as the foundation of an argument to be vegan, because the opposition to that argument could very well use that same argument, and then you would say, well, that's an appeal to nature, like Danny just said, and then you know what I mean, you're kind of being a bit of a hypocrite, I'd say, in that situation. So yeah, let's see where he goes with this. So far, I'm agreeing.
Or consuming a plant-based diet for health. With respect to ethics, it does not matter if human beings are herbivores. This is just an appeal to nature fallacy. Even if we grant the premise that human beings are biological herbivores, how can one simultaneously deploy and oppose the appeal to nature fallacy when talking about animal rights?
It's a bit inconsistent, and it's, yeah. I mean, most people, the thing is, right, with this argument here, most people that you talk to are not going to pick up on the fact that you're being inconsistent like that. You know what I mean? Like, most people are not in this formal debate world where they understand philosophical debates and philosophical positions and fallacies and all this kind of stuff. The average person's not going to pick up on that. So it's not the end of the world if you end up using fallacies without knowing they're a fallacy, or if you slip up and say something that you're like, you know, humans are natural herbivores, and then you know, like Danny's mentioning here, it's not really a good thing to do. It's like, okay, it's not the end of the world if you say it to some random on the street, right? But if you did say that in like a proper formal philosophical debate with somebody who actually knows and spots these things, you might end up in a bit of trouble. So I think this point, although it is a good point to bring up and it's a good information, I think it's maybe more relevant for somebody who's going to look to pick apart your argument as opposed to somebody who's like out on the street. So, you know, it's a good thing to know, but I wouldn't worry so much about it. I saw someone in the comments earlier, I think it was Erie, who was saying that she, or he, sorry, I think you're she, right, said that she felt like she didn't want to do activism anymore or because of something said in this video. So you got to bear in mind that, like, some of the things in this video, like this point, is right. It is a fallacy to, you know, and don't use it. But it's not the end of the world if you do. You don't need to go into each activism and environment with a member of the public, be shitting yourself like, oh God, but what if I make a fallacy? Oh God, it's not the end of the world. It's going to be okay. They're not going to spot it because they're not professional debaters, and neither are you. It's okay to sometimes say things that are not so good and, you know, by accident or whatever. Don't hold yourself to such a stupidly high standard. It's okay. It's going to be fine. This video so far is just giving advice, you know, so you can be consistent. But again, like I said, it's not the end of the world if you end up slipping up. Liam Holt, welcome to the team as a meat flake detector. Love that, bro. You get your nice little green logo, and you get your comments come up in a nicer way, and you're a part of the David Rams team like an absolute fucking legend. Remember, guys, if you want that little green logo next to your name and you want to be special, then you got to join the team like Liam just did, which is incredible. You can do it here on YouTube, or you can join Patreon, or you can join both, which is a lot of fun. A lot of fun and incredible for me as well. And supporting my team so we can do more cool shit like this. So, what's next, Danny? Or are we going to get more into this point?
or human health. Seems a little bit inconsistent to me. Now, with respect to health, claiming humans are herbivores and therefore to maximize our health, we ought to consume a plant-based herbivorous diet is not too reasonable. It may sound good rhetorically, but after investigating concepts such as antagonistic pleiotropy, the idea that foods we're most adapted to eat must be the foods which most maximize longevity goes out the window. Straight from Nutrivore's article, the theory of antagonistic pleiotropy essentially posits some genetic adaptations can trade long-term health for short-term reproductive success. However, it also turns out that most genetic adaptations are antagonistically pleiotropic. Since adaptations to food are no more or less genetic than any other adaptations, we can infer that most adaptations to food are also likely to be antagonistically pleiotropic. It's a very weird word to say.
So, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I might need to watch that about 4 or 5 more times before I understand it. Although I hope you just explain it in more simple terms now.
Simple terms, evolution does not necessarily care about maximizing longevity, and therefore being adapted or evolved to consume a certain food says more about its ability to improve the chances of reproductive success, not overall longevity.
Okay, I get it. So it's the idea that eating some ways might increase your chances to reproduce, and that's why you would switch to it, but it doesn't necessarily make sure that you live longer or healthier. It just increases your chances to reproduce. So, okay, I get the point now.
Just a side note, talking like this makes you sound like one of those ancestral eating advocates who like to also appeal to our biology or, you know, our ancestral roots or whatever, or how we've been most adapted to consume meat to justify the claim that today we should now eat meat and, you know, for sure it'll maximize longevity because we've evolved to do it. If you're a vegan and you are trying to convince somebody of the potential health benefits of a vegan diet, a better route would be to provide rigorous and robust health outcome data demonstrating good health outcomes in human beings today. Another thing related to health is when vegans use the fact that consuming dairy requires you to consume a substance from another species.
Okay, so just, I think he's gone on to point 2 now, I'm not sure. Point 1 though, yeah, like I said, I'll summarize there. I agree. It's an appeal to nature fallacy. It does make you sound like kind of like the vegan version of like Liver King, for example. Obviously the main difference being that Liver King is going out there and saying, eat this way, it's your ancestral diet. And his way is directly saying you should go and slit animals' throats. Whereas the way that we're saying is like, eat this way, it's your ancestral diet if you are claiming that. But you're doing it out of the goodness. You're not doing it purely from a health base. You're doing it as like you're trying to bolster your argument with this health-related argument in the hopes that somebody would consider stopping stabbing animals in the throat. And that is commendable, by the way. That is absolutely commendable. It's a good... I understand why you do it. I understand. I've done it. I've gone for this health argument as well before many a time. It's a pretty weak argument though. And I don't know if Danny's going to mention it in this video, but the reasons I mention it is that if somebody can get equal health outcomes without being vegan, then it's a shitty argument, isn't it? It's not a good argument by itself. For example, if somebody's eating eggs once a month or a piece of animal's flesh once a month, a piece of meat once a month, they are not a vegan. But it's not like they're going to have a worse health than a vegan, right? Because it's only once a month or whatever. So if anything, if a vegan's eating a junk food vegan diet and that person's eating whole foods with just 1 piece of meat or 1 egg a month, they'll be healthier than the vegan. So the health argument is pretty poor in general. So I would say for this first point, I agree with Danny. I don't think there's anything particularly controversial there. And yeah. I don't know. I guess that's not the bit people are arguing about, right? Let's see what comes next.
As a reason to think that it is unhealthy. And to be clear, this is very different from trying to paint dairy consumption as weird, repulsive, or ironic, because it is literally the breast milk of another species, which adult humans are regularly consuming. I'm talking about when these things are pointed out in an effort to substantiate the claim that dairy is unhealthy. It sounds very similar to the nature stuff before, like, oh, it's so unnatural to consume dairy, therefore it can't possibly be healthy. Or like human beings are the only species to consume substances or secretions from another species. Oh my God, like obviously it's unhealthy. But how can we really...
I've never heard anyone make the connection to say it's unhealthy because it's weird. I've never heard that before. I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to ask Danny where he's heard this before. I personally have never heard a vegan say that. But yeah.
To consume substances or secretions from another species. Oh my God, like obviously it's unhealthy. But how can we really know this just from this fact? It could be the case that consuming something from another species could be healthy.
I've never ever heard a vegan try to claim that it's unhealthy because it comes from a chicken or because it comes from a cow. I don't know. This is really weird for me. I'm like, this is one of the first times I've ever heard this. So if this is happening, then yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. That's like completely illogical to make that jump as it's unhealthy because it comes from an animal. Just by the fact that it comes from an animal makes it automatically unhealthy. That is a strange jump to make. And especially as, anyway, like I said, the health argument is flawed for the reason I've just mentioned anyway. But that's a weird one.
We'd have to just run the data. There are many things that human beings uniquely do as a species which other species don't do, which are healthy. Take, for example, modern medicine or surgery. Instead of making these bad arguments, instead, as indicated before, go over health outcome data on dairy and health and see if the conclusions of the data support the claim that dairy is not healthy. So
yeah, that's a good advice. Use data, and if you don't know how to read the data, then get someone else to read the data for you, or you could speak to someone like Danny who does this kind of thing. There's also Nutrivore, who's another YouTuber, and I think he's like, I don't know if he's a YouTuber, but he makes some YouTube videos. He's more active on Twitter, I believe. He's someone you could go to like read the data. There are a number of people out there who have spent time reading this kind of stuff who could help you out if you don't know how to do that. But it's definitely important to try not to jump to conclusions on things and say things that are inaccurate. But let me just revisit what I said earlier. When you're talking to a general member of the public, it's not incredibly important that you know how to read loads of data and studies. All right, it's not, because in these positions, in this situation, it's not like they're going to be like, where's the data? Was this from a controlled study? Can you tell me who peer reviewed it or what? Blah blah. This kind of shit. They're not interested in that kind of stuff. They're normally not going to be trained for it. However, it doesn't hurt to have that kind of stuff ready. It doesn't hurt to have this kind of knowledge. It doesn't hurt to have tried to learn this kind of, train yourself to read this kind of stuff. It's all useful. But as I said, don't let this dissuade you from actually talking about veganism, because the vast majority of people don't have a clue about any of this stuff. So you can talk about, other things. You can talk about ethics instead. You don't need to get into these kind of health arguments and data-driven arguments and debates, because most people don't know anything about that kind of stuff anyway. So yeah, take it easy, guys. Go for what you know. And if you want to talk about health, learn it the way Danny's suggesting. I agree with him on this, and then talk about it versus just kind of talking about it, not really knowing. I think it's important to try and get some read some studies and get a bit of a grasp on the health arguments for a plant-based diet. However, don't rely on them because, as we said earlier, they're flawed.
So let's get on to something outside of health. And I'm definitely going to be triggering some vegans with this one.
Okay.
When somebody comes out as an ex-vegan, there are usually hordes of vegans in the comment section saying there is no such thing as an ex-vegan or you were never vegan. Now, I'm not sure how many vegans are aware of this, but this is a deployment of the no true Scotsman fallacy, which in short is the following. No true Scotsman, or an appeal to purity, is an informal fallacy in which one attempts to protect their universal generalization from a falsifying counterexample by excluding the counterexample improperly. The thing is, it is definitely possible, especially logically possible, for a person's moral system to simply change.
Yeah, this is obviously true. Like, unfortunately, as much as we do say, so let's separate two things out here, right? When these YouTubers, these celebrity YouTubers, go from vegan to ex-vegan, then I agree with the general consensus that I've seen most vegans saying, you were never vegan, because most of the time they were never vegan. They weren't ever vegan. Like, it's not like I'm saying you can't have ever been vegan because you're now you're ex-vegan. That's not what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is they never were vegan. They were eating a plant-based diet and they were putting on a bit of an act, but clearly they weren't vegan. You can tell by the way they start speaking, the way they start acting after they announce they're now an ex-vegan, the way they milk the shit out of it, the way, no pun intended, the way they say like, oh, I needed to do this for health, and then they start eating fried chicken. Like, clearly these people were not, they were eating plant-based for a trend, right? That's when I say, no, they weren't vegan. I don't believe that person was ever vegan based on their actions now, based on looking at some of their previous videos. I don't buy it. That's what I say, and I don't think somebody was vegan before. However, there are examples where you could say it's pretty solid. There's some pretty solid evidence this person was vegan. this person, like I've known at least 2 people, not many, at least 2 people that literally went and did things like locking themselves in farms to protest, right? Going and doing proper on the ground activism for animals, who then went back to eating animals. Now, like, you could try to argue that that person wasn't vegan while they were putting their freedom on the line by breaking the law for animals, or you can just you just have to acknowledge what Danny's saying right here, that people's moral positions change for a number of reasons. External factors, things like affect their mentality, things affect their emotions, and they make illogical and emotional decisions to go back to eating meat because something upset them, like something stupid, like, I don't know, a vegan person they were interested in rejected them, and it made them go lose their mind, which can happen. You know, this can happen. People are stupid. All right, people are fucking idiots with this kind of stuff. Just one example of something that could drive someone over the edge, or they have some kind of mental breakdown. You know, they lose their shit completely. They lose touch with everything that they believe in, and all of a sudden they're doing the complete opposite. Go look at John Venus as a perfect example of someone who completely lost his identity. It seems completely lost his identity, didn't know what the hell to do, grasping at anything to try and give him some meaning and purpose in life. You know, so yeah, I'm not saying, you know, the point is, yeah, it is possible for someone to actually be, you know, ethically vegan and then change their morals and then not be anymore. And it's shit. And it's definitely, I'd say it's quite rare. I'd say the vast majority of people who were saying they were vegan and now aren't vegan were never vegan. The vast majority were eating a plant-based diet. They might have said the stuff they were supposed to say. They might have posted the stuff they felt like they were supposed to post to please the vegans because they wanted the attention, but they weren't. They never truly believed it. I definitely stand by that for a lot of people. But there are exceptions, and those exceptions exist. And what Danny's saying here, I think, is correct based on that. Now, I don't know if he's going to go forward and say like, you know, what I've said, that most of these people are bullshitters and they weren't vegan, or if he thinks they were all vegan. I don't know. Let's see what he says.
This is true in the case of racism, speciesism, sexism, etc. Somebody can sincerely and genuinely hold the belief that animal liberation is a good thing, and then, after being exposed to various nonsense within the anti-vegan and carnivore community, can change their views. A person could be extremely racist and then change their views after exposure to evidence discrediting that, say, all black people are this way or that way. This works the other way around too. Somebody could be against racism, be exposed to a certain kind of nonsense, and then become racist.
It's absolutely true. This is what I'm trying to say. I was trying to say, like, people can be fucking idiots. Like, our brains, especially people who have, I just watched this video with Gary Vee, right? Off topic, kind of off topic. We'll come back to it though. We'll come back to this topic. A woman asked him, how do I keep my daughter safe from the internet? And he said, either you keep her off it, which is impossible, or you give her enough self-esteem that she doesn't fall into these traps and get screwed over by people who are out there to hurt on the internet, right? You need to build up her self-esteem so she goes into the world confidently and doesn't look and attach herself to things that are going to cause her harm. A great answer that is. Unfortunately, the majority of people out there do not have this level of self-esteem. They don't have it. So, and a lot of vegans, especially, I'd say, don't have it. A lot of vegans have a lot of other problems in their lives that actually leads them to becoming vegan because they have more empathy for animals because of the shit they've been through. It's easy to have empathy for others when you have been through shit yourself. It's a lot easier, I mean, right? So you find that there's some people out there who will have been vegan, right? And yeah, unfortunately, because of these self-esteem problems, these problems, they're easy to manipulate, and it could be that, not everyone, of course, but it can be that they see that this video, they see something that catches them on the back foot, and the next thing they start down this kind of rabbit hole of looking at this alternative viewpoints, this nonsense. And you end up with, this is how you get conspiracy theorists. It's how you get people who claim that certain very disgusting, very violent historical events never happened. I'm not going to say it because the stream will get demonetized, but I'm sure you follow what I'm saying. This is how you get extreme people following crazy conspiracies and rabbit holes leading them to racism, sexism, and anti-veganism. Because of this, these vulnerable people go online and get convinced by these manipulative fucks to believe in the shit, and it goes, it can spiral out of control. So yes, I agree with Danny on this. I know it's controversial, guys, but I don't think he's particularly speaking out of turn here, and I don't think he's saying anything particularly controversial here, although on the surface it does appear to be.
There is no contradiction in just accepting that people can change their views on various topics. It really is that simple. A better response to ex-vegans would be to ask them to, substantiate the health claims they're making about how, you need animal products to survive or to be healthy, or you can yourself empirically demonstrate the falsity of the claims they're making. And then in the case of ethics, you can just run a little logic test or consistency test on them and see if their moral system actually makes sense.
See, the thing is, and what Danny's going for here is trying to appeal to a sense of sensibility in these people. Like, oh, they've made a sensible decision, so let's try and what will happen is when you do bring up these points Danny's bringing up with these people, you'll find that they tend to they'll get emotional, or they'll write you off as an extreme vegan that's bullying them, because the reality is they don't have answers to these questions that make sense, because the position they're holding, that the change they've made is not based on logic, it's based on irrational, emotional changes in their life, right? That's what they've based this new decision on, to start killing animals again. And it comes out when you bring stuff up with them, when you bring this kind of stuff up that Danny's saying, which is why he's saying it. It's not necessarily like you're ever going to convince them, but you will be able to point out, the hypocrisies and it's point out the inconsistencies in what they're saying, which if you have an audience watching, it's worth doing.
If one of these ex-vegans is now supporting a free-range farm and they think that's ethical because it's free range or whatever, just ask them if you can support Elwood's organic dog meat and support dogs being mass exploited and murdered, but on a local and humane farm. See if they can draw a line that is consistent. If not, you have them in a sort of logical contradiction. Of course, these methods I'm talking about are a little bit more time-worthy than just blatantly being like, oh, you were never a vegan, or there's no such thing as an ex-vegan. But that's what happens when you're trying to be reasonable. You have to actually take a more nuanced approach and get a little specific. You can't just make this very rhetorically nice sounding claim and then just be like, oh, you were never vegan, and then move on.
I think I can kind of see, as a bit of feedback, Danny, if you're watching this, I can kind of see why some people might have got rubbed up the wrong way, because it seems like you're kind of telling people off a little bit, dude. Like, sorry to criticize here, man, but it's what we do. Yeah, see, I don't know. Maybe the tone pissed a few people off. I don't know, bro. I don't know. But I can kind of see maybe potentially the possibility of somebody feeling like they're being kind of spoken down to at this point, like a vegan. Although what you say, it doesn't change that what he's saying is right here. I think it's good advice. And it's like, if your only position on an ex-vegan is to say, well, you were never vegan, maybe just kind of move on to something that's more worth your time, right? Instead of making that kind of comment online, because it's not even useful to say something like that, I don't think, really, unless you're going to make a full video explaining exactly why this person was never vegan. Like, hey, look, beforehand, all they did was talk about food, and they made the odd animal post, but it was really 2 in a year. So yeah, I don't believe they were ever really vegan, and that's why. I think that's fair play. I'd say that's fair play. I'd make that kind of video. I'd deep dive into someone's history to prove that, wait a minute, I don't think they ever really gave a shit about animals. It was all for money. I'd do that. I think that's a good way to go if you're going to do it.
The next thing is in the case of ethics, when people are saying things like, oh, needless suffering and needless killing, you're causing animals to needlessly be killed, you're causing needless suffering. This is a very weird thing to say, and if you're talking to an intelligent meat eater, they can just get you on this as well. As we know, there's such thing as crop deaths in the production of plant products, and if you are causing crop deaths in your consumption of plant products and you're consuming more calories than you need per day, you're technically causing needless suffering and death as well. So a meat eater could just get you on that. There's no good reason to put yourself in that situation, and now you have to defend yourself and be like, wait a minute, and it's hard to, right? There are things that we just simply don't need that we consume and use on a daily basis, which cause, quote, needless suffering. Because when we say the word needless, we mean needless with respect to needing to survive. And if you are consuming, let's say, an overabundance of calories on one specific day that you didn't technically need to survive, someone could be like, wow, you're causing needless suffering, you're a hypocrite, why are you trying to get on me about causing needless suffering when you are as well? So instead of, doing that, just start with this person's position on humans and see if they're consistent.
That's an interesting point, but I would say, are they not simply committing a red herring in that world? Like if you say, these animals don't need to suffer, right? But the thing is, they're kind of just distracting away from themselves by pointing the finger back at you. So it's not really a counter argument to say, well, no, you're doing it too, right? Is it? Would that not be a red herring? Because it's not the same, is it? I'm trying to wrap my head around this one a little bit. Like, for example, so crop deaths happen in crop farming, right? But crop deaths are not at the purpose of crop farming. Animal death is not the purpose of crop farming. And it's not something that vegans want. It's something that farmers either don't care enough about or currently have no option other than what they do to get the crops, right? So this kind of point of like, let's get this right. The calories, so if you're over consuming calories, that's causing needless suffering. But the needless suffering that it's causing doesn't need to happen either, but that's out of your control because you can't control what the farmer does to get the crops. So no matter what you eat, the needless suffering will happen if you're eating vegan, right? Because it's needless. Those animals don't need to die for crop production. To eat a vegetable, you don't need to kill an animal, but the farmers do it anyway, right? So that in itself is a needless death, right? And his argument, the overconsumption of calories. So it's kind of like trying to equate overconsuming calories with killing and eating animals as like these two things are the same. That's what it's trying to get at here. Like, well, not Danny, but the meat eater's trying to say these two things are the same, right? But I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think that's a good argument from a meat eater. I think it is just a distraction away from what they're doing to try to make you feel bad. Because then the logical conclusion of what they're saying is, okay, then if that's true, then if that's what you truly believe, that overconsumption of calories is just as bad as killing animals, then that means that what? Are you going to live on the absolute brink of survival every single day from now on because that's your position? No, that's not your position. Oh, so you don't really have a problem with overconsumption of calories. You're just saying this right now because you want to keep eating meat, right? Because I think I think that's what I disagree with Danny on this one. I think it's quite an easy one to get around for the way that I've just said, because they don't believe what they're saying. It's not like they hold the position that eating too many calories is bad for like a bodybuilder or whatever, or if you just pig out and have a cake one day when you don't need to have that cake. They don't think that's bad. They're only using this as a red herring to distract you away from the thing that you're pointing out for them, right? So I guess in conclusion at this point, I don't completely agree with Danny's position on this one. I don't think that's like, by this logic of Danny's, we could get into basically, if we consider this anti-vegan argument here now as seriously as Danny is considering it. I mean, there's so many things that they say that actually aren't worth getting into or even taking seriously. And I'd say I think this is one of the things that is not worth getting into or taking seriously. The same as like plants have feelings. This is just like another one of those to me. It's another objection that just needs to be handled. I don't think it's worth saying, okay, never refer to animal products as unnecessary suffering. But for the sake of what if they say that, you know, eating calories causes unnecessary suffering. It's like, it is just them trying to distract. I don't think it's worth changing your entire approach to try and avoid that objection. I think you fall down a path at this point. If you can go down a really dodgy path where you try to preempt every single objection, right? And then you end up trying to like navigate it too carefully to the point where your entire, you know, it's like you're trying to play a game of duck and dodge rather than just saying what you want to say and then dealing with the objections that come back. So, yeah. Okay. So I agree and disagree, I suppose, with the concept Danny's going for here. I think it's good to think about the things that people could say and maybe to try to alter the way you say things. If you see an easy way around saying something that just avoids an entire thing, entire objection. On the other side, though, if you feel that what you've got to say is powerful and the objection is bullshit, go for it anyway. For me, with the unnecessary suffering, I don't know. I don't really personally say it so much, this idea of like, oh, but it's unnecessary. I mean, well, maybe I do. Maybe I do say it. I don't know, but I wouldn't say I'm married to it. And I've never heard anybody say this argument Danny's coming back with. I mean, technically, then you could say that, you know, every bodybuilder in the world is immoral because they eat more calories than they need to survive. You could say anybody who eats a cake is immoral because they eat more calories than they need to survive. Just any cake, any day, because it's not necessary. I mean, holding this position in response to the saying that eating meat causes unnecessary suffering, it's a weird position to hold, and it doesn't stand up to a logical, debate, I would say. I don't think so. Maybe Danny and I can get into this on a podcast. I'll make a note. This is a good thing to talk about, this idea of like unnecessary suffering, and we can get into it in a lot more detail and see if see what comes up.
Be like, do you think it's okay to kill cows for food? They'll say yes. Is it okay to kill humans for food? They'll say no. And then you'll say, what is the morally relevant difference between humans and cows, such that it's ethical to kill humans and not cows? And they might name a trait like, lower intelligence. Then you bring up a mentally disabled human who has lower intelligence from what we can, observe than a cow, and be like, okay, so is it cool to eat these humans, and see if they're consistent? A much better approach, because when you bring up the whole needless killing thing, that's just, we're all causing needless suffering to some degree, right? Or at least most people are.
Again, it's a really, I mean, yes, it's true, but like I said, it's them trying to distract away from what you want to talk about. That's all it is. It's like, well, but you're doing bad things too. You're causing things too. It's like, yeah, I know I'm causing things too. But what we're trying to focus on here is this really, really, really big fucking horrible thing that you're contributing to. And you know what? You're right that I caused some stuff as well. And you're right. And I'd love to talk about that. But I mean, you could even say, considering like, where we're both at right now, and the changes that it would take to get to okay, we can't... Changing the entire crop system and how that works. Well, okay, first of all these crop systems are mostly feeding animals anyway. So before we even get to changing crop systems and trying to stop all that, why don't we talk about like how you can do something right now? Like instantly, this fucking second, you can do something right now that's going to save. I think it's this is distraction technique from non-vegans. And I would say it's most likely someone who's just trying to like catch you out. It's most likely someone who's, as I said earlier, invested in like philosophy or something like that. It's either going to be a trolly kind of comment, or it's going to be someone like philosophically making the comment. I wouldn't worry about that too much. Although Danny's opinion is a good one on this. It's interesting, and I would like to get into it with him a little bit more.
Okay, so the next thing is going to be a little bit less comprehensive. So when vegans just outright condemn somebody and call them an animal-abusing piece of shit, when the vegan has no reason to believe that the person they're calling this has even spent enough time to fully understand what it is they're supporting. Many vegans will just jump to character attacks as opposed to just calmly educating people.
So yeah, I'm guilty of calling people selfish pieces of shit, but never one individual person unless they deserve it. So I think at this point, it's important to make a distinction. If you're just coming on YouTube and you're just like, hey guys, blah, 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 don't be a selfish piece of shit, go vegan. I don't think there's a problem with that. If you're just like going directly at someone and you're like, hey, you're being a selfish piece of shit, when you don't know if they've actually understood what's going on and all this then yeah, I agree with Danny on that. I think that's maybe a little bit unfair on them, because we weren't all born vegan, and the chances are they've never even thought about it. Got to consider this, guys.
Who literally have never thought about this ever. Of course, shaming can be warranted, but it 100% is not warranted in a situation where the person you're shaming isn't even aware of that which you are shaming them for. Yeah. A lot of vegans who were not born vegan, which is most vegans, often forget what it is like to be in the dark on issues such as animal rights and how bad all the arguments are which are aimed at defending animals' oppression. Yeah. We have to remember where we came from when finally learning all of the problems that have to do with animal agriculture, and calmly educate people in the way that we were also, hopefully, right, calmly educated.
Yeah, I've seen some people go straight for the throat on this kind of stuff. It's mainly on social media, though, and I think it's important to acknowledge there is a very big difference between social media and real life. And yeah, social media is fucking just a complete mess. It's a complete shit show, social media. It's like I would never base what people are like in real life on what they're like on social media. I'll make a big distinction between the two. I've never seen any vegan walk up to someone in the street and go, you piece of shit. But I have seen it online. And but it's mainly been in response to people who are being little dicks online. And it's not really good to respond to people like that online either, because it just feeds the trolls, doesn't it? They're happy they get the attention. So overall, I think that's a good piece of advice.
And to be clear, guys, I am not at all exempt from these criticisms. I can get emotional with meat eaters too, especially on Twitter. It isn't easy to just be super calm with people, making super bad arguments, which you've heard a million times, to defend the literal worst oppression on this planet. It's not easy to just be like, oh, like you're just defending like literally torture and death. And I'm going to calmly be like, hey man, have you ever thought about like that? Like it's hard to do that. And I totally get it. And I can empathize with that experience. And now let's talk about toxic vegans, which tend to overlap with the types of vegans I mentioned just now. There is a large amount of room in the vegan movement for people who are overall very negative and toxic in their own life to join, and without realizing it, use the vegan movement as just another excuse to shame and be shitty to people. When I see these kinds of vegans, it becomes very clear to me that it is very likely that these vegans struggle in their interpersonal lives.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of this myself. I think a lot of the major issues that we have as vegans with other vegans, not so much in person, mainly over the internet, and then obviously it has an impact in person, is because of what Danny just said. I do think a lot of people, like I said earlier, a lot of people hurt people who've been through shit, people who are going through shit, people who've had shit happen to them, like horrible things, and who are in pain, happen to go vegan because they connect with the pain of others, happen to go vegan because they have empathy. And that's, you know, and some of these people can end up being quite toxic and horrible to others once they've like become like a part of this community, almost taking out some of the things they've been going through. Like, it can give you empathy, but it can also give you an extreme level of prejudice and judgment towards other people, right? You can have empathy, for example. Lots of people have empathy for animals, but they fucking despise humans, right? Lots of people have empathy for black people, but they fucking despise white people. Empathy for women, but they despise men. So you know, all these positions are a little bit illogical, because it's not really consistent to say to I don't know, to show, I don't know, care or love based on someone being a certain thing or like fitting a certain category, but then to completely hate and despise someone else simply because they don't fit into that same category based on nothing else. It's quite a bad way to be. And unfortunately, I think there are vegans that fall into this trap. And I'm not saying they're just horrible to non-vegans. They're really, really horrible to vegans as well, that they deem to be not fitting this perfect image that they've got in their head of what a real vegan is. And that each individual, you know, each one of these individuals has this image in their head of what a real vegan is to them. And then everyone else has to try and match that. And if they don't match that, they get really fucking destroyed by these people. I mean, you should see some of the online bullying that happens, especially across like Facebook and Twitter, when people decide to turn on someone they deem to be like not vegan enough or not feminist enough or not woke enough or whatever. This shit goes bad, really bad. And it's not a problem that's exclusive to vegans at all. It happens in like every community. There are these people in every community. Basically, this type of person attaches themselves to a community and then uses that community to do all of their, you know, nasty shit, to be nasty, basically, and kind of uses that as like an outlet. And again, it's not only, this is not a specifically vegan thing. So yeah, it's like Danny's been mentioning a few other different movements, different communities, and you know, it happens in those as well.
And are just as toxic in their in-person relationships as they are, you know, shaming people and being a giant dickhead on the internet. And the last type of vegan I want to discuss, which overlaps a lot with these last two vegans I've described, are the misanthropic vegans.
Oh,
these are the vegans who just, you know, follow a shit ton of animal slaughter footage, and they have a very, you know, nihilistic, misanthropic view of the world. They just hate humans. They have like these weird generalizations they just put on humans. And don't get me wrong, like humans can be absolute monsters, and I agree. And there's many things that humans do that are fucked, but there's also a lot of very amazing humans out there. And I'm just trying to say that these kinds of vegans, I tend to not really get along with them because they're overall very negative. They're very depressing. They often expose themselves to some of the worst atrocities on a daily basis. These are vegans that just like, you know, if you scroll through their feed, it's just nonstop torture. And, you know, I don't blame them for being upset and feeling negative, but there are ways to go about life being aware of the atrocities and also giving yourself a little bit of a break and trying to enjoy the good things in life. And this can also make you a much more, you know, like a much better activist. It's just a much more mentally sustainable way to go about it, an emotionally sustainable way. You don't want to like burn out like some of these other activists have.
It's a really good point that he's making here, and I can tell you that he's not lying. I'm speaking exactly from experience in that it's a lot of you might already know, but my experience of being exposed to these kind of things is very extensive. I worked with the Save movement, and I was filming slaughter very regularly, getting up close and very personal with animals, having their throats cut, having their heads chopped off, a lot of baby animals. And I can tell you that while I was doing this, it was the darkest I've ever felt in my entire life. And before that, I was going in farms. I was investigating farms again. Some of the things, just absolutely horrific things. And this is firsthand. It's not watching videos on Instagram or YouTube that Danny's referring to. It's actually this stuff, you know, seeing this stuff firsthand, seeing this stuff in real life. So what's my point here? My point is that when this was happening, yeah, it put me in an extremely dark place. I was definitely suffering quite a lot with what Danny's talking about here. Seeing people as just hating people, not wanting to be around people, putting an act on to pretend that I liked people or I cared about people when I needed to, but actually I just wanted them to all leave me alone. I wanted to be, you know, it was really, really bad, really, really bad place. Judging people all the time, having horrible thoughts about people all the time. So yeah, I can speak 100% from experience, and that Danny's right that this can happen, and it does happen. And trust me when I tell you this, it completely stops you from doing anything productive in the sense of like making any positive impact on the world. How can you can't edit videos properly because it just getting yourself up in the morning is difficult. You can't have conversations because you're just thinking like, I just, you know, I fucking hate this person. It is really, really unproductive to be like this, to be this way. It really is not good. So I don't know if Danny's advice here is necessarily helpful for someone to get out of that place. But I can tell you that speaking as someone who's been in that place, I can tell you what helped me was absolutely, I agree with Danny, to take a step away from some of this, take a breather, to do some things that you've not done in a while, do things that you actually love, that you enjoy, that don't have connections with veganism, things that are completely out, like bowling, go to the beach, I don't know, whatever, that go to a games arcade, go watch a movie, and step away from it for as long as you need to so that you can come back and be good again. And that if you've really fucked yourself up, that could be a week, that could be 3 weeks, that could be a month, it could be longer. But if you do it regularly, the time really doesn't take that long. Like if you're like, you know, with what I was doing, trying to stay in trying to bring myself back from the brink, was like, yeah, like a week or two away, and then come back and do some time, and then when I feel it's getting too much, take the break, and then go again and take the break. And it can be like, it can get down to like 1 or 2 days at a time as a break, which is nothing. 1 or 2 days versus 1 or 2 months. I mean, just if you do it more regularly. So I think he absolutely has a point there. And I would really take that in consideration if that's where you are right now. It's, as I said, it's not a nice place to be, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, this dark place.
These types of vegans will often just forget that human beings are very moldable and malleable, and you can't always blame them for their behaviors.
Guys, I see that I'm like lagging like crazy right now. Is there a lot of lag here, or is it okay? You tell me if you think it's lagging or not in the chat. I don't know why this keeps doing this. It's very strange. Yeah, just let me know in the chat. I'll just wait for you for a couple of minutes and just tell me if it's lagging or not. Then we'll finish Danny's video on this last point and see what else there is. Are we lagging? Are we lagging, guys? No, it seems smooth now. I don't know what the bloody hell's going on over here. Okay, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. I think the lag's okay.
Given, you know, the culture they've been brought up in, the way in which they've been raised, things like that. Yes, there are human beings out there that are fucking absolute garbage, but there's also really good people out there, and it's good to focus on the fact that they exist and try to create more of them, because I mean, why not, right? Humanity isn't this like inherently flawed fucked thing. If it was, then every human would just suck ass, right? But that's just not true. There are many humans that are good, and there's many humans that are bad, and there's some humans that just are unaware of what they're doing as being something bad or something like that, right? So that's just the main point here. These misanthropic vegans just have this really bad view of humans, this inaccurate view, to be honest, unless you're gonna, you know, accept like appeals to collectivism as reasonable and say that, oh, if you're in this group, like you therefore have all these traits, without actually empirically demonstrating that every single person in this group has these traits. It's kind of like racism or sexism. It's like being speciesist toward humans in some weird, ironically non-vegan way, right? Kind of odd.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just gonna go by like humans as like the history of humans, it's mostly pretty bad. Like, I mean, yes, there's a lot of good, but you can't ignore that there's been more bad than good in human history, right? I mean, we can agree with that, can't we? That we've had more terror and nastiness than we've had, you know, love and peace in human history, as in, well, in known human history. So I can see why some people would just kind of give up on humanity. I understand. But based on, if it's based on like kind of a logical position of like, well, like I just said, like humans have been, you know, doing such horrible things for so long. If it's based on just watching videos and seeing stuff like I was, then I don't know, it's not, that's more like emotionally driven, and it's important to try and pull yourself out of it. And you've got to find a way to get by, haven't you? Going by just hating humans is not going to work out in the long run, because you've got to work with them, right? So, but I do understand there is a logical view on that as well, that like humans in general as a species have been pretty shit from you know, throughout modern history. So and through whatever history we know. So you know, I get why some people will be like, man, I'm not a fan of humans, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you should be like, fuck all of them. It means like, you got to understand that, yeah, we're extremely flawed as a species. The human condition is pretty, it seems to be a pretty bad one. Got to work with it. We've got to figure out how to work with it, right?
But yeah, that was a bit more of a rant. Didn't really structure that part of the video. I just generally hate these kinds of misanthropic vegans. I probably have some following me, so maybe I don't hate them. I understand them. I just don't relate to them, and I think that there are ways in which you can make yourselves a little bit less inclined to hate humanity, and you can start with not exposing yourself to slaughter footage, which you've seen a million plus times, and maybe start following some more like cute animal pages or something like that, and just get a little bit more positive, and, you know, focus on some of the humans in your life that are great. And if you don't have any, then try to find some like vegan meetups near you, and find really like-minded people. Go to events that, you know, possess people who possess your values, and you might meet some really amazing people. Okay, so that's the end of the video, guys. I appreciate you watching. If you disagree with anything I've said in this video, just go ahead and comment below. We're starting dialogue here. Please, no toxic infighting or ad hominem attacks, you know, like insults in place of arguments. We're going to keep this as civil as we can, and just see if we can grow as a movement and refine our positions and be just more reasonable in general. Thank you for watching.
Cool.
And I'll see you in the next video.
Okay, so in summary, like what exactly do you guys think was the most you know, what was the most controversial thing here? Because I don't think there's anything in there worth canceling Danny over. I mean, I could probably try and, you know, cancel him. I could try and, you know, for the bants, but I'm not. I don't think there's anything particularly that controversial, to be totally honest with you. But I see the comments here, and I saw the comments, and they seemed like, I don't think there's anything particular. They seemed like they were going off a little bit, you know, like you guys were pissed. Some of you actually were pissed even. So how about we take a look at these comments and see like what exactly got people riled up? Because the reason I wanted to respond to it was I actually saw some of these comments and I thought, oh, okay, looks like people are getting a bit pissed about this. So let's have a look at some of these comments and what the hell happened. So here's Danny's clarification. To be clear, yes, I agree an ex-vegan was never ethically vegan if they come out saying or strongly indicating their consumption of a plant-based diet was primarily for health reasons. Yeah, so we did clarify that bit. Cool. Okay. What else do we have? Or let's stop publicly mocking vegans. Easy ask yourself, don't it's cool. Enough is enough. Thanks. Okay. I would absolutely fall into the category of misanthropic vegan, and I'm not sure how to go back at this point, as I've been misanthropic since 2018 and vegan since 2017. Okay. I mean, that's fair enough. Definitely reconsidering the way I approach certain arguments. Okay. I kind of didn't like this one. Seemed like it was splitting hers. Hope the next video is better. Yeah. I mean, I did say at one point that I felt like there's maybe a little bit of that in there, but overall, I think he had a lot of really good points. But yeah, I could see why you might think that. I feel like this is like call out to vegan gains. In all seriousness, I agree with pretty much everything you said. Okay, so nothing dramatic here. It's a little ironic, isn't it? Not knocking the channel, but all your content is based on sarcasm and mocking the moronic anti-vegan myths while using logic, of course. How is that effective? I'd like to think most people don't behave the same way they do in real life as they do online. You aren't going to get through to the trolls in the comment section anyway, when they literally spout the same nonsense that was just debunked in the video they didn't watch but are commenting on. So what's the sarcasm is for vegans, the logic is for everyone. Okay. So, who and where are these trolls? Or do you simply mean the people that disagree with you? I don't really understand. Yeah, that's not really a criticism, I don't think. Just out of curiosity, if the victims were Jews, Arabs, Latinos, blacks, or any human being, would you have made this video? Yes, assuming everything is held constant. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Someone disagrees with the nature point here. No one is appealing to nature. We are just stating facts. Beings do not need animal products to live, right? We are herbivores. Well, but that's not what the definition of a herbivore is. Right? It's not that you don't need animal products to live that makes you a herbivore. We are biologically omnivores because we can survive on both. Like, for example, if you took a rabbit and tried to have them survive on meat, I mean, I don't know, but I'm going to assume that they couldn't survive, right? Because they're actually herbivorous, right? That they wouldn't be able to do that. But humans can live, right, to an older age eating animal products. So I don't, and also we can digest them. So I don't really, we do have herbivore-like teeth, not the massive canines. We have smaller stomachs, high pH acid, long intestines. If this were false, veganism must be on no basis at all. If we require the consumption of animal products to live, we cannot advocate for a diet that will kill you. But omnivores don't require animal products. That's the point. It's omnivorous. It's you can do either or both. That's why dogs can be plant-based even though they have massive canines, because they are omnivorous animals. So I'm not sure this criticism's quite a bad one, in my opinion. Jesus, it's a pretty intense one. Becoming vegan is a commitment, and you either make that commitment or you don't. If you do any actions that violate that commitment, then you never made the commitment in the first place. See reply for more on this. After going, oh my God, that's too much. Sorry, Alicia, but yeah, I don't necessarily agree, because some people do make the commitment and then change their moral position because of the things that we said earlier on. I've said there is no such thing as a form of vegan. I think it's very rare, but I guess it is possible. I agree. I think the vast majority of ex-vegans don't really know what vegan means. 100% agree. That's a really good point, and it's absolutely true. I've just found your channel today. I've been watching. Oh, that's nice. Okay, so yeah. Sorry to disappoint, but I will continue my cringy ways. I don't see why I have to talk to fully grown adult people as if they are children when it comes to animal rights and veganism. And you bet your soy farm that I will continue to be one of those misanthropic vegans you mentioned. To be fair, I already hated humanity prior to going vegan. That's funny. Yeah, but it's fine. If you don't want to educate people in a calm, reasoned way that tries to kind of have them, you know, make the connections themselves. If you want to talk to them like kind of brutishly, let's say, and more directly, well, that can work for some people too. It's you know, not everybody can be Earthling Ed or should be Earthling Ed. So it's okay if you're a little bit more of a, I don't know, spicy vegan. If you're more of a spicy vegan, I mean, that's who you are. As long as it doesn't like resort to just calling people names and shit, just like really like unhelpful stuff like that, then yeah, should be fine. See this bloody, what is wrong with this system? What is with this crazy lag right now? It keeps bloody doing this. Seems okay again. Super annoying. All right. Yeah. wants to disagree. The topic you are causing neither suffering and death again. It is not weird. It is one of the two main arguments for veganism. Why? Oh my God, it's too long. I'm not going through that. It was controversial, I suppose, in some parts, but and it's very debatable in that, as I said, we could have a like full discussion about any one of these things and get into it, you know, in a long form video, which is potentially what Danny and I will do. Maybe we can break down the points that he made in the video and get into them like one by one and see what we get into, see if there's any argument, any wiggle room on some of them. Maybe you can elaborate a bit more on some of them, because it's a short video, you know, it's only a 13-minute video, and it's a 13-minute video, and it has covered like some of them quite deep points that could do with a bit more of an elaboration. So yeah, maybe we should get into it and get some elaboration on it.